Testing. Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you so much just for the invitation, just a chance to come down and get to hang out with you guys and spend some time. I appreciate knowing. I didn't know you guys met at Ember. I love this venue, and it's down the street from me, and I'll be back. I want to say a little bit about the wisdom traditions this morning, and I want to start with a little story, and we'll see what happens. A lot of what I do a lot of group facilitation, and it's an emergent process. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I have an intention that I want to just share with you. And the intention is to start to pay closer attention to how we attend to our experience moment to moment, and what happens when we pay attention in a different way. My experience with paying attention to how I pay attention is that there's always something in the moment just beyond my awareness. And you can notice that if you just pay attention right now. Like really open up your senses. You can start to notice the sensory crispness of the moment, the richness. If you just pay attention to your heart for a moment, you might notice that it might feel something like mine. It feels really relaxed and really open and excited about new connection. There's just this sea of sensory experience that we're awash in as human beings. And when we're first born, that's what my story is about in a moment here. When we're very first born, the sensory experience in a human body is overwhelmingly fascinating. You see the way an infant, 1 minute old, well, not all of them have opened their eyes just yet, 1 week old, the way they just drink in what's happening, everything is fascinating. It doesn't matter what they're looking at, because just the act of seeing, just having eyes to see is totally enthralling. And it doesn't matter what sounds are in the world, because just having human ears to hear sounds is overwhelming in a beautiful way, I think we might imagine. And just having bodies to feel and to eat food with and to dance with and to make love with, whatever we do with these bodies, it's this incredible sensory experience. And when we're first born, we don't have judgments about what's streaming in through the senses. We just drink it in. And there's something really amazing about that. And so that's my intention. I set a timer. I'm not one of those guys that goes way over time. I'm just going to take about 20 minutes here and then do some Q&A. Angie and Nicole asked me to just say a little bit, what was it exactly, about how we can benefit from the world's religions, or what I like to refer to as the wisdom traditions, because, wisdom has a different spin on it than religion does. I think you might appreciate it. So I'm just going to share a few things. I got laughs out, that's it. Everybody laugh. Yeah, no, they're different. Religion is different than wisdom, and hopefully they often coincide. We all know that they don't always coincide. All right, so I want to tell a story. This was just from this morning. I woke up and I heard that a family in my neighborhood, I just live by 9th and 9th, by Coffee Garden, by Judge Memorial. I heard that a young couple in our neighborhood, they had a baby, a baby girl who was born, and everything looked normal. She looked healthy. It was a joyous moment for the parents. And there were doctors gathered around, and nurses and family members, and everything's fine, everything seems fine. And one nurse in this whole crowd, she notices that one side of the baby's body was discolored. And so she knew just from her training immediately that the baby's not getting oxygen. Sorry, I gotta interrupt myself in this story. Say thank you to Sarah. That was really incredible. I had no idea I was in store for like a world-class TED Talk. They just said, they said something. Yeah, and Rocky, like I just read the agenda, like music, 5-minute community moment. I'm like, they really didn't do justice to Rocky and Sarah in that playbill. It's really, yeah, high quality entertainment here Sunday morning. So not just entertainment, but thank you. Really beautiful. This baby girl, she was discolored, and half of her body, roughly one hemisphere, was oxygen deprived. And they rushed the baby to intensive care. And she has heart failure. And they saved her life. This little girl, who's a few days old, she's not out of the woods yet. But here's what I want to stress, that just by the way that a single person paid attention to this other human being, the way they were present and attended to the information that was just right there for anyone who was paying close attention, it saved her life. And in the work I do, we could call it, sometimes it's called mindfulness. That word is like getting McDonaldized. It's used everywhere, so whatever, call it mindfulness. I do research in developmental psychology, so you could call it growth, you could call it human development. But I'm a lot less concerned with what we call it than like how it feels to grow and what it feels like to really sanctify the moment with our attention. And I hope you can feel what I mean by that intuitively, like when we really just come fully present to our life as it is. It's a gift. Right? The Buddhists talk about this as the precious human birth. They say it's so rare to have the opportunity to be born as a human being, to have the opportunity to be a human. It's like a sea turtle swimming around the Pacific Ocean, and there's a single inner tube floating out in the entire Pacific Ocean, and the sea turtle just happens to come up to draw a breath of air and just pokes its head up right through the center of that inner tube. The chances are just infinitely small that the sea turtle's going to poke its head up to breathe in that little ring. And the Buddhists say it's evocative, right? They say it's rare. Like, how did we get these bodies? We don't actually know. We all have different ideas about it and stories and beliefs. And I'm not here to question anyone's particular belief. But my experience is that it's the damnedest thing, in a really beautiful way, that we have these bodies and that we get to live with them and practice with them. So this nurse saved the girl's life just by paying attention, just by bringing her full awareness to a moment, and said, this girl looks healthy, but there's something wrong. Saved her life. So I want to just do a little exercise here. I want to give you guys a couple minutes to just turn to the person next to you. It doesn't matter if you turn left or right, but if two people turn right and one person turns left, someone might end up feeling lonely. You guys take care of it, you know what I mean? But make sure everyone has a partner. But what I want you to do, I want to just give you a really simple exercise. It's a practice. I want you to pay attention. I'll give you about a minute apiece to just say how you're doing. Share as much as you feel comfortable sharing. It doesn't matter so much what you say, but the person listening, I want you to be present with the person with this sense of mystery. Like the person you're present to, they're on this journey, this profound life journey. And the depth of their stories, you couldn't capture them in 100 books. You tried to write it all out. It's just the depth and the profound dignity of a human life. So I'm just asking you to shift your attention 1 degree and just be present with someone for a moment and see what happens. So I'll give you a moment, 1 minute or so, you can share, and then the person listening can share back. And your job is to just pay attention in a different way. Go ahead. Just invite you to come back to silence for a moment. And as we come back to silence, we can just breathe in. Just feel where that exchange left you. Just notice how your body feels, how your heart feels. Take one more breath and just appreciate whatever is coming up. Maybe it's a really beautiful, graceful experience. Maybe something challenging happened in a 2-minute exchange, but just breathe it in like it's an experience. Thank you. I want to just hear a shout out from anyone, just briefly, like in a word or two, like anything you noticed, anything you're feeling. Feel connected. Thank you, Sarah. And what else? What came up? Something to help with someone's need. So you thought of something that Sarah, Nicole thought of networking. Yeah. And she's smiling really big up here. Yeah. Anything come up? What are you aware of?
Similarity in human experience.
Yeah, beautiful. Similarity. That's a great one. Yeah. Appreciation. Yeah.
Curiosity.
Curiosity.
Not thinking about the self.
Not thinking about the self. Thank you. Yeah. Feel the richness of the experience that comes up. And if we didn't mark it with our attention, we can just let it go by. Like another moment, and another moment, and another moment goes by. And pretty soon our whole life is behind us. But when we stop and we really bring the fullness of our awareness to the moment, it's the most natural thing in the world to say, like, I feel appreciation, I feel connection. I forgot about myself. I was so present with the other person, I lost myself. This is what happened to me in a slightly different way when I was young. I just want to share. I only have 5 minutes left. I just want to share that I grew up in Salt Lake City, and I grew up in a family, a beautiful family, very devout LDS, and for reasons that are maybe a little bit beyond the scope of our Sunday morning here, I would say our beliefs got in the way of our relationships. Our different beliefs caused a real falling out where, there in my adolescent years, starting at age 13, I felt like I'd lost my family, I felt like I'd lost my culture, I felt like I'd lost my identity. And it was when I moved out of my parents' home when I was 18 years old that just kind of out of the ether, a teacher appeared to me. It wasn't like mystical, it was just a dude who lived in the neighborhood. He was a meditator. I'm not trying to I'm not putting on guru airs here, but it's a guy who knew how to meditate, and he's a great guy. And I could feel the freedom in him. When you're around people we all have our different practices, things we're really good at. This person was particularly free, like he just had a way of just letting life come and letting it go, and it was just kind of exhilarating to watch this man live, and I wanted to mimic it, I wanted to learn it, so I went in my first college dorm room and I just sat on the ground and I just sat still, like he taught me to. And I had that moment that maybe a lot of you just had now, where you pay attention in a different way. I had a moment where the nurse in the hospital paid attention in a little bit different of a way and saved a life. I sat still and paid attention to what was going on in me. And I noticed a couple things immediately that were really stunning, that to this day I remember really well. One of those things was that I had underestimated how much I hurt. I underestimated how much pain and heartbreak I was carrying with me. That really scared me, actually, how broken up I felt. And almost as a counterpoint and a grace to that moment, I realized that everything I'd ever thought about myself was a kind of illusion. Or in other words, the thoughts that I'd come to know about myself, I'm seeing this image, I have to just share it. I don't know if there are Planet of the Apes fans in here. I don't know if I qualify as a full-on fan, but I did see the 3 recent films, and It's in the third one where there's that, if anyone knows the name, shout it out. It's the older ape that's really charming, and he's the one who says, bad ape, because he grew up at a zoo, and the zookeeper was always telling him he's a bad ape. And anyway, I don't know if it's worth seeing the movie just for that. But I kind of had that bad ape complex in me. When I was 18 years old, I'd left the Mormon church at age 13. I'd had big falling outs with my family, and I sat on the ground in this sad little dorm, and I had this voice essentially saying, bad ape. Like, I had this deep emotional pattern in my heart that I was bad, and I had this belief that somehow my life had run off the rails. And in that same moment that I looked really closely at it, I also saw through it. And for those who are interested in languages and who are interested in the world's wisdom traditions, the original Pali word, which is the language of early Buddhism, for the term we know as mindfulness, the original word was vipassana. And one of the translations of that word is to see through. And I had this moment where I just saw through all these stories I had about myself, all these stories that other people were telling me about who I was and what I needed to do with my life. And when I saw through those stories, for the first time I had this kind of experience maybe like an infant has. Like, life is so vast and it's so unknowable. But not unknowable in a way that scares me, that makes me want to panic and figure out what I believe. Unknowable in a way that was relieving to me. Like, I don't have to tell a story about my life. I don't have to tell a story about who I am. I can just be. I can just be in the vastness of human life and human experience. And so I learned that from the practice. I learned that from the practice of just sitting still, that my beliefs at best are pointing to something beyond themselves. And at worst, they're obscuring much greater truths. And I learned sitting still that it's about who and what we are. And you guys can feel that right now. We can feel that in this room, the majesty, awareness, spirit, the human heart, how we come together and help each other and love each other and serve each other. The kids are just running amok back there. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, there's nothing we can't work with in our experience. There's nothing we can't work with. There's nothing in life that doesn't invite us into deeper wisdom and deeper compassion. In a nutshell, that's what I've taken from the world's wisdom traditions. And I'm grateful. Forget anything I said. Feel this room right now. You can hear the stillness, and you can feel your heart, and you can feel that we're of one heart. And it's always a miracle when I come here with people. It's always a miracle when I find myself back here. So thank you so much.